welcome to our March wrap-up. So in the month of March, we managed to read 21 books. Pretty good, right? Not so great. We were aiming to read 4,908 pages, and we managed to read 4,095, which means we managed to read 83% of our goal, page count wise. It would have been worse, but 12 of the books that we read were our World Book Day 2021 releases. I will link down in the description. We did a 2-day reading vlog to celebrate World Book Day, and at the end of part 2 we actually sum up, we review, give ratings for all of these books. So if you're interested in our thoughts on any of these, that's down in that video. And if you're interested in our thoughts on The Case of the Drowned Pearl by Robin Stevens, The Boy I Am by K.L. Kettle, The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, or How to Disappear by Gillian McAllister. I will also link our March mid-month wrap-up down below because we talked about those 4 books at length in there. Considering we've read a lot of short books this month, I'm actually going to break down our ratings slightly differently to how I normally do, because the World Book Day books, they're children's books, they are picture books, and it means that we rated them quite highly because they were fun and we got carried away with the excitement of the day. So it has skewed our ratings chart quite dramatically, as you're about to see. So if we include our World Book Day books, we read one 1-star book. That is our first 1-star book of the year, which is a huge disappointment. I probably should have DNF'd it, but I will get into that in just a moment. We read 3 2-star books, 1 3-star book, 3 4-star books, 3 4.5-star books, and 10 5-star books, which is ridiculous considering we'd read 1 5-star book the entire year so far. To get 10 in a month is just amazing. However, if you take our World Book Day books out, the pie chart looks a little like this. We have 1 1-star book, 3 2-star books, 1 3-star book, 2 4-star books, 1 4.5-star book, and 1 5-star book, which looks a lot more like you would expect from a chart from us. Not 10 5-star books in 1 month level, just our second 5-star of the year, which feels a lot more natural. But yeah, let me share you some thoughts on the 5 books that we did manage to read in the second half of the month. I'm not going to be able to get too in-depth on most of these because I've actually finished 3 series this month, which is completely out of character for me. I like the idea of finishing series because I'm a completionist, and I don't often DNF series halfway through. But it takes me years and years to finish them. So the fact that I've finished 3 in a month, I'm really, really chuffed with that. So we'll start off with what is my least favourite book of the month. And that was our 1-star book. And that was Crossed by Ali Condé. This is the second book in the Match trilogy. I read Match last month. I thought, it'll be really, really quick and easy to read Crossed and Reached in March because I read Match in a couple of days, absolutely flew through it. But Crossed basically put me into a reading slump, and it's horrible. So nothing happens. You could go from reading book 1 to reading book 3, and you would feel as though you had missed nothing. It's completely pointless, and it's the most non-book I've ever read. Like, nothing of consequence happens, nothing interesting happens. It suddenly becomes a dual perspective novel, and it doesn't need to, and Kai, who is the second perspective, who is Cassia's love interest, is so boring. It's the most bored I think I've ever been reading anyone's perspective ever. And I don't know what possessed her to make this a dual perspective novel, because it's just not interesting. However, Reached, I gave 2 stars to, which is better than 1 star. It's still not really what you want to be feeling when you get to the end of a 500-page book. I'm going to do a full series review of these ones at some point next week because I have a lot to rant about. It's not a good series, and I enjoyed book 1. I like the concept, but it falls apart so quickly. And if you are somebody who has these on your TBR but hasn't picked them up yet, I would recommend just unhauling them. Even though the covers are beautiful, these will be going because there are so many better YA dystopians out there, and I have so many, not just like major issues with these, I have lots of little issues as well. So please, if you'd like to hear really in-depth spoilery thoughts on these ones, come back at some point next week and you will get to see me probably tearing my hair out while I talk about these. The other 2-star book that I have to talk to you about today is Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. I was not expecting this to be a 2-star. I loved Ready Player One. I gave it 5 stars. Upon a reread, I gave it 4 stars, which is still really high for me. Especially when I reread books, I normally do drop them down a little bit because I can see the things that I didn't see first time around when I was absorbed in the story. But I feel like if I reread Ready Player 2, it would probably just be a 1 star. So you're following Wade, who is from the first book, and in this book, trying to do this without giving too many spoilers for book 1, but Wade finds like a headset thing, and you like put it on and it makes you feel as though you are in the Oasis, which is this virtual game in the Ready Player One universe. So it's called the ONI, and it makes you feel like you're in the Oasis. Like, if you eat something in the Oasis, you can taste it, you can feel the texture, you feel yourself getting full. You're only allowed to use it for 12 hours a day, because otherwise your brain goes into synaptic overload, and then you die, which is grand. So as soon as it gets 12 hours a day, bang, you get logged out. Haha, that's fine. And so Wade finds another little Easter egg hunt left by James Halliday, who was the creator of the Oasis, and he has to find the 7 shards of the Siren's soul, which, if you're reading this book out loud and you have to say 7 shards of the Siren's soul over and over again, gets very, very irritating very quickly. So Wade has to find these shard things, and Anorak, who is James Halliday's NPC character, comes along and is like, I want you to find these shards for me. Ha ha ha, I've locked everybody in, so if you don't find these shards in the next 12 hours, everyone shall perish. Fair enough, but it takes 100 pages before they find the first shard, and they find the first shard just before Anorak says this. So, if it's taken you 100 pages out of a 300-page book to find 1 shard, and that 100 pages takes place over, like, for 2 or 3 years, you're expected to find the other 6 in 200 pages. It goes from the slowest book I've read, apart from Crossed, very slow. This goes from ridiculously slow to all of a sudden, like, oh, we've just completed, like, 3 challenges in, like, a chapter. Slow down, Jethro. That is fast, but it means that it's not properly fleshed out. There's this weird bit where they're like fighting 7 princes, and I don't mind Prince, but I'm not hugely interested in him. But his costume's really well described. That's really cool. So you could picture the prince in your head, which was cool. But then there's this whole bit when they're like walking around. I've forgotten his name. The guy who does the Breakfast Club. That's how much this book impacted me. I can't remember his name. John Hughes. You're walking around John Hughes films and they're like, oh, this looks like a combination of like the corridor from 16 Candles and the corridor from the Breakfast Club and the corridor from this other film, all like combined together. But none of them are described, so if you haven't seen those films, completely lost. So you get hugely intimate descriptions of Prince's 7 costumes, and then just, this is a corridor from a film. If it was all the same kind of intense, intimate level of description, I would have probably been more bored, but I would have at least known what was going on. But I felt as though I had no idea what was going on for at least half of this book. There's a whole ass bit set in Lord of the Rings, and I don't like Lord of the Rings. So they're like, oh look, we're walking, and we have horses, and we're walking, and there's fields. Well, the reason I didn't finish The Lord of the Rings is because I don't care about people walking with horses. Probably the reason I'm having trouble finishing The Shadow Rising as well, now I'm being honest. But I didn't need more Lord of the Rings, and I wasn't expecting more Lord of the Rings, because the first book's very much based in, like, video games, and this was very much based in just anything that Ernest Cline wanted to pay homage to. My other major problem with Ready Player 2 is just the fact that it's really predictable. Like, they're really confused on what the Siren's soul could be, when it's quite common knowledge that Kira Underwood, who was the woman that James Halliday was in love with when he was alive and when she was alive, used to play a character called the Siren. It's like, oh, it's going to be like some kind of NPC that like reincarnates her. And it's not exactly that, but the fact that the characters are really confused about what the prize could be, I just don't get it. Like, it's pretty obvious you're meant to be Gunters. You're meant to know everything about James Halliday. How could you not know that? There's some kind of interesting discussions about, like, obsession and unrequited love, and there's this really cool quote. I'm not going to be able to find it now because I have not put myself a little marker for it, but there was a quote that I liked quite a bit. I'm going to the wrong section, which isn't helping anything. Right, so this is saying that basically life is a video game. Some people play the game for 100 years without ever figuring out that it's a game, or that there is a way to win it. To win the video game of life, you just have to try to make the experience of being forced to play it as pleasant as possible for yourself and for all of the other players you encounter in your travels. Kira says that if everyone played the game to win, it'd be a lot more fun for everyone. I like that quote, just basically saying that you should try and make life better for other people, and that the way to live your life to the fullest and to win at your life is to bring joy to other people. And I like that idea, but then the rest of the book just seems to directly contradict that, because Wade isn't somebody who brings joy to the people around him. He is very much self-absorbed, and he's very much just a bitter young guy. Like, his friends are in relationships and they're happy, and he's not happy, and he just kind of seems to take it out on them. Like, oh, well, you don't want to hang out with me as much anymore because you have a fiance, because, like, you're having a baby. They're allowed to grow up, and it's like that direct contradiction. It feels like everybody else is growing up, but Wade is exactly the same character that we encountered at the start of Ready Player One, and I liked the way that Wade grew throughout the book. It feels like Ernest Cline just pressed the reset button on all of that character development so that he could get a second story out of Wade. I thought the ending is interesting. The ending does a thing that I wouldn't have expected, but I can't get too spoilery. But basically, the way that the ending is told, it's in a different style to the rest of the novel. However, it would have made more sense if the bulk of the story had been bookended with that style. So if the prologue had been written in the same style as the conclusion, like the epilogue, if that had happened, it would have made me more interested, and it would have been a lot easier to get into the book. But instead, that is left till the end, and it feels like it was a bit of an oversight, a bit of an afterthought. I wasn't really sure where I was going with this story, so I thought I'd do this crazy thing, and now I'm going to write it in a different way. If he'd actually had that idea in his head at the start, I feel as though it would have been laced throughout a little more, and it would have been more interesting. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. It was a quick read. Considering this was the month of me starting books, not really wanting to pick them up again, basically reading 10 pages of Shadow Rising a day and just feeling like I never wanted to read another book in my life, I read this very quickly. It took us 2, maybe 3 days, and I could have read it faster if I hadn't been in that mental state. So it is a very easily digestible book, and if you are somebody who enjoyed Ready Player One, you will get kicks out of this because it's told in very much the same style. There's still that listing, there's still the little kind of limericks and puzzles throughout, and it's enjoyable. I was just expecting a lot more from it. It isn't a necessary sequel. It doesn't really add much to the story, and I feel like I would have been more satisfied if it had been left alone. I'm glad that I read it because I did really, really love the first book, but this does make me feel more apprehensive about picking up Armada because I've heard contradictory things about that, like some people saying it's amazing, some people saying it's the worst thing they've ever read. And because of how much I loved Ready Player One, I thought, I'm going to love everything Ernest Cline writes. I'm not going to mind. It's going to be like 5-star for me. After this, I'm not feeling as confident. But it does make me want to read that sooner rather than later, just so that I can answer that question. So yes, 2 stars for Ready Player 2, which breaks my heart to say. It probably would have been a 3-star if I hadn't been expecting so much from it. I probably am rating it harshly because it did disappoint me. But yeah, 2 stars for this one. The next book I'd like to talk to you about today is Shame on You by Amy Hendenrich. This is the 3-star book that we read this month. A 3-star book? No, there was just the one. So this follows a girl who has made like a wellness empire. Her name is Holly, and she has cured herself of cancer by eating healthily. Or has she? So when the book starts, we meet Holly as she bumps into a guy in Starbucks, and he is so charming and so gorgeous, and he's a doctor and he's really attractive, and they're like walking through the streets and she's like, oh my god, all of my dreams are coming true, it's like a rom-com. And then he attacks her. He gets out his scalpel and he's like slicing her face up, and she's like, what the hell, what have I done to deserve this? And then you have this dual perspective throughout of like, what is she hiding, and is he gonna like attack again? And I loved the dual perspective in this one. It propelled the story so fast until it didn't. So the first half of the novel is like the quickest thing I've ever read. I loved it. I thought Amy Henry Rich was going to be a new favourite author for me. I liked the discussion about social media. I liked the discussion about faking things on Instagram and the way that it's not that bad. People know that nothing's really real on Instagram, so it doesn't matter if I pretend that my holistic lifestyle has cured cancer that I didn't actually ever have. It's a fascinating look at like the psychology behind social media and how you can trick yourself into thinking that those kind of lies and fakeries are okay because it's just what everyone does. But then it kind of hits a brick wall. So you get like halfway through the book and all of a sudden it's just like Holly, I think his name was James. I don't really remember. He had two names. He like told her a name and then it wasn't his actual name and he had another name. So my brain's struggling to recall that properly. But we get like halfway through the book and she's just trying to track him down because she wants to know what his dealio is. And he's like making his own like food Instagram and he's trying to like do loads of interviews to ruin her life and tell everybody his story. And yeah, that was where it kind of lost it for me. I thought the idea of this guy who was so averse to social media, like the binary opposition of her like living for social media and him hating it so intensely, that made for a very interesting conflict because it was like you could forget about the characters and just look at that conflict on like a surface level, but then it just spiraled a little bit. Wasn't a huge fan of the ending. I thought it was a very easy ending and it would have been more interesting if something different had been done. I did like the fact that Holly goes to like a wellness retreat for therapy so that she can talk to people about it. It's like to get over the fact that you've been shamed and to deal with your feeling of guilt and like move forward in your life without that feeling hanging over you. That was a really nice idea and I always find it interesting when books explore alternatives to like, oh yeah, like you're depressed, we'll just give you some medication. I find it interesting when books explore not only that side of things but like other different forms of treatment as well. So that was interesting. It just felt like it was a train that had run out of steam. It was like chugging along. It's like the most gripping prologue I think I've ever read. And there are some reviewers, like I was looking afterwards to be like, is there something I'm missing? Is there a reason that I'm not gelling with this as well as I was at the beginning? Some reviewers are like, oh, it's got a really slow start. He literally stabs her in the face like 5 pages in. How much quicker can you get? I was so impressed by how brutal and how immediate the violence was in this novel, because so many thrillers dance around it like, ooh, something bad's happened, and now we've jumped back in time and the bad thing's about to happen. But no, like there is no kind of non-chronological aspect to that part of the story. You do get it later when you jump back into Holly's past to see why she decides to tell the lies that she does, and you jump back into James's past to see why he hates Holly as much as he does. But it's not like oh, this thing has happened and now we're going to jump back and then we're going to get to the present day. It's like mostly chronological from the point of her attack, and that is so refreshing for a thriller to just be like, look, this terrible thing's happened, we're going to deal with the fallout, we're going to deal with the aftermath, we're going to see her coming to terms with the fact that she has these facial scars now and the fact that she's been attacked and all of this media scrutiny on her of like why she's been attacked. There's discussions about victim blaming. There's discussions about the way that the police don't take violence against women as seriously as they could. There's lots and lots of interesting discussions going on in here, and it makes me really want to pick up Amy Hendenreich's other novel. She only seems to have one more at the moment, which annoys me because I want to read more from this author. But 3 stars for Shame on You, and a very, very promising debut from an author who I want to read again. And last but not least, I'd like to talk to you about the 5-star book that we read this month. And it's Death Set Sail by Robin Stevens. So this is the final book, which makes me so sad to say. It's the final book in the Murder Most Unladylike series, following Daisy Wells and Hazel Wong as they go on a trip to Egypt with Amina El Gharabi, who is their new classmate, and they get this cruise. And on this cruise, there's a group of people called the Breath of Life, and they believe that they are reincarnated Egyptian gods and goddesses. So they are arguing over who has been reincarnated as who, and one of them ends up getting brutally murdered. And Daisy and Hazel have to solve the murder, as they always do. Luckily, Alexander and George, who are the junior Pinkertons, are also along for the trip. So we get to have the two detective agencies working together, and we also get to have Amina getting involved, and Hazel's little sister gets involved too. So there is a lot of fun going on in this novel, and I think it is just the perfect end to the series. So you've got all the characters that you love coming back, even though it's not set at Deep Dean, you still get to see Lavinia, Kitty and Beanie as well, so you really do have a brilliant goodbye for all of the characters that you've fallen in love with throughout the series. It's not just Daisy and Hazel that you're saying goodbye to, it is all of them, and I can feel myself getting emotional just talking about it, because I love this series so much. Like, yes, they're middle grades, but they are such brilliant mysteries, and it's not just the mysteries that are the thing I love about these. I love Daisy and Hazel both so much, and just the way that they've grown throughout this series, getting to see them from like when they first meet and Hazel and Daisy don't get on at all. Daisy's like bullying her when she first goes to Deep Dean, and just seeing them develop that close relationship and seeing them become best friends and basically family, it's just so wonderful. And this is like the longest book series I've ever read that I've actually finished, and there's a short story collection coming out in August, and I'm gonna do like a big in-depth spoilery series review then, once I've read that, because that's gonna be technically the last book. I still have another book, I'm not allowed to get emotional now, but Robin Stephens is just brilliant, and Daisy and Hazel are just brilliant, and I've been reading these books since 2018. I've been reading these books longer than Sophia's even been alive, and the fact that they're coming to an end just makes me want to cry a bit, which is why I didn't read this when it came out, because I knew it was going to gut me. I read the first chapter, and I was nearly crying, and I was trying not to, so I was reading it out loud to Sean. I was like, oh no, and it's not even that sad. There are some sad bits. It's not even that sad, it's just the idea of it ending that just gets to me. There is going to be a spin-off series. It's advertised at the end of the book. The Ministry of Unladylike Activity, I want to say it's called. I might be making that up. I thought I'd seen it at the end. Yeah, the Ministry of Unladylike Activity. It's going to be following May Wong, who is Hazel's younger sister, who gets involved in this case. So it's going to be going back down to like younger mysteries, and I think that's the reason that Robin Stephens needed to finish this series, because at this point Daisy and Hazel are 15 and 16, I think, or they're both recently 16, so this does become more of like a YA novel. It feels more YA, and for people who've been reading them since the first one came out, they will have aged up with these characters, and it's going to be such a beautiful way for them to say goodbye to these characters and to go forward. But I just want Robin Stephens to write like a YA series or an adult series following Daisy and Hazel, because her mysteries are just impeccable, and it would work with adult mysteries. You can't guess what's going on, you can't guess the solutions. This one is so twisty-turny. I thought I had it down to pat, and then it all just blows up, and it's like, no, it's something completely different. And every single time, apart from, I think there's been 2 books that I've been able to guess the murderer, but that hasn't really taken away from my enjoyment of it, because I don't think I'm right, because I can so infrequently guess with Robin Stephens books. But like, as I said, the mystery isn't even the thing I love most about these books anymore. It is the characters, and just like, just all of them. I just want them to be my best friends, and I'm sad that it's over, and I wish I hadn't read this book so that I would never have to have it end. But I'm also really glad I read this book, because it was a 5-star, and I've now read 2 5-star lists this year, and they've both been middle grades, which I think proves that middle grade authors are blowing it out of the park. Like, I don't know, it's not even that I'm necessarily enjoying them more than the other books that I'm reading, they're just written better. Like, come on, YA authors, step up your game. But yes, 5 stars for Death Set Sail. A full spoiler review coming for this whole series in August. But just read them, please. And Robin Stephens, thank you for giving me a favourite series that I could actually finish. Because I never, like, I finished 3 series this month. Never a series this long. Never a series this long have I finished, and I'm proud. Oh, I lie. I read a series of unfortunate events, but I didn't manage to finish them on a reread, and I read those when I was like 8 or 9. So, for grown-up Alyce, I don't finish series, so I'm proud. And those are the 5 books that we read in the second half of the month. As you can tell, it has been a mixed bag. There have been huge disappointments. There have been huge successes. There is no surprise that my little brain noggin has been struggling with the reading this month, because things have been all over the place. Hopefully April will be better. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, and we would be super duper grateful as always if you would like to subscribe to us. We post new videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, so make sure to pop back in a couple of days and we will have another video for you. I'm just going to go and have a bit of a cry about the end of the Murder Most Unladylike series, because I can feel myself still being really emotional. I'm so pathetic. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again soon. Bye! In which we have 1 5-star book, 1 4.5-star book. I've just realised I was meant to be reading them from bottom to top.